Hi everybody, thanks for joining. As Sarah says, my name is Jim McNabb, and I work for Oceaneering. And like the two guys you'll see in the video, we're going to give 20 minutes today and 20 minutes tomorrow, but we're going to intersperse the actual video footage with questions, and it's really good if you can send as many as you want in. But I'm going to give you some hints in between. But Oceaneering's a big company with offices all over the world, including Aberdeen. But the main office is in Houston in Texas, where the shuttle missions and the International Space Center is actually managed from. We do work underwater, mainly with machines called ROVs, and again you'll see them in the video. But we also work in oil rigs and refineries and power stations and other theme parks like the Universal Studios in Florida. We make stuff for that. But the coolest of all is we work in space, and we make things for the International Space Station. Well, outer space. Well, it's not really outer space. It's where the International Space Station is, which isn't the outer space, because outer space is a lot of more miles away than just where the space station is. The video is an interview with two colleagues and friends of mine who work for Oceaneering, and as Sarah says, both of them were astronauts, Carl Waltz and Mike Bloomfield. They now work at the Neutral Buoyancy Lab, and again, they're going to tell you all about what that is and what it's got to do with space and what it's got to do with energy. So if you give me 2 seconds, I'm going to turn this over.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Volume okay, Sarah? Everything okay?
It's absolutely perfect. But before we get started, Jim, I've got a question that I'm dying to ask you. The question is from a teacher, John McDonald, and he's asking, what planet would you love to go to? So just before we get started, just to answer that first question, what planet, if you could go to any planet today, which one would you go to?
Well, you'd have to say Mars, because it's been on the news lately, and I fully believe Mars was the same as Earth only millions of years ago. And for some reason, Mars got too hot or was unlivable, and everybody that was on Mars moved somewhere else. They're still wandering around space somewhere. So I think there's Martians going around the place. They've came to Earth a couple of times and didn't like it, went back. They probably came to Stonehaven.
Well, so that's how the question and answer function works, guys. So any of these questions, some of these we'll pass on to Carl, the astronaut, on Friday for him to answer. And that recording, if you can't manage joining us on Friday, you'll be able to, we'll send you that recording, so you'll see your questions are getting answered on Friday as well. But yeah, Jim, if your video is ready to go, we can get started.
Is that it? Oh, Sarah.
That's it. Perfect. Can you guys all see that?
Getting thumbs up.
I think so. I think so.
This is going to be weird because I'm talking all the time and I can't.
That's it. They can see. Perfect. Perfect. Thank you ever so much. Remember this new technology. We miss seeing you all in person, but this is pretty cool for the moment. But yes, over to you, Jim. Let's get started.
Right, I'll start the video now, and I'm just going to stop it every now and again, like I said before, and try to put some stories behind it. So the first 2 or 3 minutes, I do it too many times. You can't stop me talking, but we'll see how it goes.
Carl Waltz. We're at the NBL. We're going to ask these gentlemen some questions about their careers and talk to us about the NBL in general. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I mean, I'm quite honored to be sitting with both of you gentlemen, and in case the folks on the watching the video don't know, both of you gentlemen are astronauts.
Yep.
6.5 months at the space station.
Right.
3 shuttle missions. One,
yes, sir.
One you were in charge of.
Yes, sir. I was a commander in one.
So both of you gentlemen work for Oceaneering.
Yes, sir.
Tell me what you do.
So I am the vice president and general manager of Oceaneering Space Systems down here in the Clear Lake area.
And you?
So I'm the director of business development, again, for Oceaneering Space Systems, working for Mike.
Told you it wasn't going to be long before I stopped it. So these gentlemen, are, as I say, are colleagues of mine. Carl's been over to Aberdeen, and he's met the family, my family in Stonehaven. I tried to get him to come down to the Marine in Stonehaven Harbour, but he's not. In fact, just passed you guys in Denota. But it was too early for a beer that day, so he didn't come down. Do you see the big swimming pool behind them? I wonder what that is.
Mike.
Okay, so which one of you guys would like to tell me who I can pick on first?
No, pick on Mike first.
Pick on Mike first.
Yeah.
So Mike, tell me, how does one become an astronaut of three shuttle missions? How does that work?
There's a multitude of ways that you can become an astronaut. The path I took was through the military. My background was through the Air Force. I grew up as a fighter pilot in the Air Force, flying the F-15. Then I became a test pilot and did that in the F-16. And then I applied to NASA, and like so many things in life, timing was good. NASA was in the process of hiring a bunch of astronauts to go build the International Space Station. And so my timing was good, and they liked what they saw. And so they asked me to come join them in 1995.
Carl, tell me about you, sir. How did you become an astronaut?
So it's a similar story. I was Air Force officer. I came up a different route. I was in the engineering side as a flight test engineer. I tested F-16s at Edwards Air Force Base when I started putting in my application. Put my application in about 4 times and was selected in 1990, and was fortunate enough then to fly 3 shuttle missions, and then the long duration, the 6.5-month mission.
Man,
Did you hear them say F-15 and F-16? Do you know? Does anybody know what those are? And the another question I wanted you to think about was, do you think you have to be able to fly a plane? It sounds like Mike flew a plane before he became an astronaut. Sarah.
It's okay. We've had some guesses. So we've had some guesses of fighter jets. Are F-16s fighter jets? Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well done, everybody. And also, Jim, we've had some guesses for the humongous swimming pool behind you. The question was, what do we think we use that for? And we've had some excellent guesses here. Is it where they train for training? And we've even had a guess for what it could be called. Someone has suggested it might be called a moon pool, which I think is actually cooler than what it's really called. So I think we should get onto NASA and have them to change the name. But yes, is it for training? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's for training, and they go on to explain exactly what it's for. And yeah, absolutely brilliant. The F-15 was a fighter jet, and the F-16 was the more modern fighter jet. It was on Top Gun and things like that in the movies. But what I wanted to make here was wondering: do you think you need to be an astronaut to be able to, or do you think you need to be a pilot to be an astronaut? Because that's maybe not the case. You don't really need to be. I don't know if you can. I think one of them said, Mike said that he was a commander of the shuttle.
Yeah.
Do you think he means the space shuttle? And I wonder which space shuttle he piloted. Was it the Endeavour? Was it the Discovery? It could have been the Columbia. Is there any other names that you can think of, or any other space shuttle names that you can think of? Okay, Sarah.
We're just seeing if there's any that are coming through now. It's I also noticed there that Carl applied 4 times before he was successful getting into NASA. Oh, we've had some Apollo. Lots of guesses for the word Apollo as a space mission. Is that correct, Jim?
The Apollo wasn't a space shuttle, but the Apollo was the mission. Or the Apollo all the way up to 15, I think it went up to, before they stopped the Apollo missions. But yeah, Apollo was the name of the space missions. But in Endeavour and Discovery, Columbia, and there's another. I think there's another 2.
We've had a guess for Challenger.
Yes, the Challenger.
Yeah, well done. You guys are on fire today. This is brilliant. All these really good guesses. Perfect. Okie dokie. So
I feel so.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
So insignificant sitting here. I mean, I really do. I mean, I was in the Air Force, and just I looked at the fighter planes from far away. But wow, very impressive, gentlemen. I'd also like to ask you gentlemen about space a little bit, because I know a lot of people will have questions about that. Like, right. A great question for this place is, how do you prepare to go into space and weightlessness and all of that? And I'm assuming we can talk about the MBO a little bit here. Right. Mike, would you like to?
So there's this saying that has kind of been, you grew up with in the Air Force, and I think it applies to NASA as well. And the saying is to train like you're going to fly and fly like you're going to train. So NASA takes a typical space mission with the ascent into space, the time you're in space, and then the time coming down, and they break it into components with simulators. And then you go simulate what you're actually going to do in space as best you can here on the ground. So you might have a shuttle simulator that you train in. You have the big pool here that you would train in to go do spacewalks. And then you would have another simulator for how you would come back to Earth in an airplane. Like when I had to land the shuttle, they had a thing called a shuttle training aircraft that we would train in. So it's, I mean, while it sounds awesome and it is awesome to get into space, the actual training of it and reducing of the risk of it is very predictable, and it pretty much follows the military model of train like you're going to fly and fly like you're going to train.
Carl, I mean, how did you, same sort of thing to prepare, or?
So it was very similar in my case, because I was a spacewalking astronaut. I did train in the pool here, and so you put on the spacesuit, very similar.
Yeah, I thought I'd stop it there with that cool photo. So this is called the NBL. You heard them saying the NBL, which means the Neutral Buoyancy Lab. I've been there 6 or 7 times, and I've met some of the divers that are in the photograph just now. You see the photograph with the divers in the right-hand side and the one in the left-hand side, and you can see the astronaut in the middle. So NBL means Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory. Maybe on Friday you could ask Carol more about what it does, and also can you see what the divers are doing?
Alongside them, it looks like they're maybe holding on to some of the equipment that the astronaut has got. Is that correct?
Yep. And you'll see the angle the astronaut's at. He's nearly horizontal, so it's really difficult when the astronauts are in the pool. And I'm going to come on to this later, but they've got big kind of stubby fingers underneath that suit, because that's the same suit as they wear in space. So they have to get used to wearing that suit, and this is the closest thing underwater that you can get to weightlessness in space. And really, the divers are there to make sure the astronaut doesn't crash into things and pick things up. And I'll tell you about that later.
So the divers the astronauts in preparation for going into space and doing their work in space, they practice in the Neutral Buoyancy Lab, the NBL pool, and the divers' jobs are there to stop them banging into things, because they're obviously floating around. But they're also, this is all part of their practicing before they go into space. So they must spend a huge amount of time practicing in the pool before they go up there. But I suppose it means that they're comfortable in their suits as well, because that does not look very comfortable. That giant spacesuit there looks like it would take a bit of getting used to. But it's all part of them getting ready. And then is that giant yellow tube there, Jim? Is that carrying their oxygen so that they can be underwater for a long time? So
that's called an umbilical, and you can see it snaking away around to the left-hand side there. So that supplies them oxygen whilst he's in the pool. And of course, in space, it would be very similar. They'd have to have an umbilical that fed them air when they're in space as well, because it's two similar environments. Because you can't hear, you can't breathe, and you would suffocate if you didn't have that. So very similar environments. But you'll see the astronaut as well is working on this complicated silver machinery, and they'll come on to tell you exactly what that is as we go through the video.
Similar to what you would do in space. Instead of going out into space, they drop you into the water, and then the divers are very helpful. They take us to the work sites, get us set up, get us weighed out so that we're neutrally buoyant, to try to simulate as best as possible what it's like to be underwater in space. So I did the training for my last shuttle flight, STS-79, and then I also did training for my long duration flight, both here, and then the long duration flight was a little bit different because I also trained in the Russian version of the Neutral Buoyancy Lab, the Hydro Lab.
Wow. How is being in the pool, how does it compare to being in space?
So it's similar in that when you're in the spacesuit, you're pressurized. So everything you do, you have to work against the pressure in the suit. So things like closing your fist, opening your hand, you have to work against that suit. So that pressure is always there. In space, you really are weightless. And so it's very easy to move your body. So that works in two ways. One, it's easy to reorient your body, but it's also very easy to get out of orientation where you have to tend to where you're at to get back to your work site. In the water, there's the resistance of the water that tends to slow you down. There's also a preferred orientation in the water because, you know, even the hard work that they do to get us neutrally buoyant, the suit still has a preferred orientation.
Well, there's still gravity, right? I mean,
well, there's gravity in the sense that the suit is floating,
right,
but you in the
right,
suit,
that's what I mean.
are down at the bottom of the suit.
Okay.
And that tends to give you a preferred orientation in the water.
Which is different than in space, because in space you're actually floating inside the suit, and the suit's floating as well. So you have a lot more room inside the suit when you're in space.
I mean, which way is up, I guess, would be a question. I mean, there really is no up.
So in space, we use this term that up is whichever way your head is, right? I mean, wherever way your head is, that is up. But it brings up a really interesting problem. If Carl's out doing a spacewalk, and let's say that he's on the end of a robotic arm, and he says, move me up. Well, his idea of up might be different than my version of up.
That's a good point.
If I want to go up relative to the shuttle, that would be different than, say, Carl, who's up, might be out pointing towards the left wing at the time. So we do have to talk about when we say up, what does that mean? It's a very relevant question when you're trying to operate in space.
Heavens, it seems quite complicated.
We've had a question about the pool, Jim, about how big and how deep it is. You said that you've been there a few times. Do you remember how big and how deep it is?
Yeah, well, I was coming on to that later on, but I'll tell you now, and we'll head that off at the pass. Saying the pool's 40 feet deep, so it's about 10 times deeper than your average pool at the school or in the local leisure centre. And when you go into the building, you can't see the pool. The picture you see just now, that big area at the back there, when you walk off, if you walk over the barrier there's a drop of about 20 feet. So the pool is actually built up off the floor. So to get to the level where they are just now, you've actually got to go up about, you've got to go up in a lift to get to the level where they are sitting getting the interview. And then the pool, so it's a big wall. As soon as you walk into the building, you see a great big wall there. And the pool is behind that wall, but it also goes 20 feet below where you're standing. So it's not just 20 feet above ground level, it's 20 feet below ground level. So it's 40 feet deep. It is just a huge, huge area.
I suppose because they've got to be able to recreate everything that they want to do, and including the International Space Station, which isn't huge compared to where we live and work at the moment in comparison to Earth, but it has to be a big enough pool to be able to fit all of these bits of kit in, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We're having some other really good questions in the chat box. Remember, if some of these questions are better for Carl on Friday, we're going to collect all of these questions and ask Carl on Friday. So keep them coming in because they won't be lost. But yeah, sorry, Jim, I just wanted to ask that question about the pool.
No problem. I was stopped it there because it looks like it's quite complicated when you're floating in space, which it obviously is, because nobody knowing what's up or down, and your head's up, but my head's not in the same up as you're up. So one of the main things the divers do when they're in the pool with the astronauts, they keep turning them upright, because they end up upside down a lot of the time. So I mean, when I was talking to one of the divers, one of the Oceaneering divers that was there, and he says, and I asked him what was the most common thing that they did when they were in the pool, apart from moving the astronauts around because they're too bulky. And he says that the thing they did most was they had to dive to the bottom of the pool to return the tools to the astronauts, because they drop them all the time. because they've got such big stubby fingers on the ends of their astronaut gloves. So they can't hold spanners and they can't hold everyday mechanical tools very well because the gloves are so big. The other thing I wanted to say was, did you hear Mike say when you're on the robotic arm? I wonder if you can find out what you think that looks like and what does the robotic arm do? I'm going to go on a bit and let you have a wee think of that now.
Tell me what the NBL is, Neutral Buoyancy Lab. I mean, it's clearly, this is probably not an oceaneering facility. So can you guys tell me what it is, how the relationship works between us and NASA? Would you like to start?
Sure. So we are part of the team that operates the NBL for NASA. So NASA, has their.
Sorry to stop it again, but I thought I'd just tell you this little story, a very small story, very quick story. But when I was there, I noticed, see all the flags up the top? The American flag. See if you can name some of those flags, but the British flag's there as well. But when I was there, I noticed there wasn't a Scottish flag. So I told Carol this and Mike later, but I actually made a little Scottish flag when I was over there, and I stuck it on the right hand corner where I think that's a Swiss flag right at the very end there, and I stuck a little Scottish flag up there. But I don't know if I've spotted it and taken it down now, but I wonder if it's still there.
We've had some flag spotting. We've got Sweden, Canada, Brazil, China. Everyone's hot on their flag identification today. Oh, Japan as well. Yes, well done. And we've also had a guess for what the robotic arm is. The metal arm with a small platform on the top. That's a suggested answer from Caroline Kelman. I think that's a great guess, don't you, Jim?
Well, that's exactly the answer. And
yeah.
we were Oceaneering had something to do with constructing that robotic arm. The robotic arm sits in the back of the shuttle. It doesn't sit in the space station, but I think there might be one in the space station, but I know for certain there's one in the back of the shuttle, because the shuttle is basically just a big taxi. It took parts back and forward to the space station like a taxi does. And the way to get the cargo that's in the back of the shuttle from the shuttle is they have a big robotic arm, and they can lift things and place boxes and things like that, and tools. And also it's got a little platform where the astronaut goes and fixes their feet to, and somebody inside the shuttle moves the astronaut around. It saves them doing a spacewalk. But it gets them to the right place at the right time. So yeah, absolutely, that's exactly what the robotic arm does.
And it holds them into place so that they don't float away, or they don't have to, because as you said, those big fingers, it's not like they can hold on to anything. So it
much safer.
Sounds like a handy tool to have. We've had some other guesses: the Netherlands, France, Spain, Germany, lots of flags. And Jim's saying that at some point, if it's not still there, then our Scottish flag was there. So that's brilliant. But you can see in this picture just how big that ginormous swimming pool is, and just all the bits of kit that they've got. But if you look down, you can see some of the things that are inside the pool. You can just see some of the things that they have there set up for them. So the pool's not empty. It's not like a swimming pool that we would get into. It's looks like a little underwater city there, doesn't it?
So you can see as well the reason why they call it the International Space Station, because it's in everybody's interest, all planets' interests, for the science that's conducted up there, and all the experiments. There's engineers, there's botanists, there's not just the pilot only takes you there and back, but all these other countries will supply expertise in all sorts of subjects. So you didn't really need to fly a plane to get up there. You just need to be trained in some kind of science subject. So I was only supposed to spend about 4 seconds in that slide, by the way, Sarah.
That's okay. That's okay. And we've had another couple of guesses for Norway and Denmark, but I think that's a really important thing to remember, that it is an international space station, and it's about us all working together. And the fact that it's an amazing science lab that's up in space, that research scientists on Earth, they can send their experiments off into space for the International Space Station team to run different experiments in space and then report back the results. So it's and I know that NASA was heavily involved in some of the research around the coronavirus, and just using all of our collective international collaboration to solve these problems that we've got on Earth, and take our learning into space. So yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah.
There are management folks here in the building as well. But as far as the day-to-day management, it's a team of contractors led by Raytheon, so we're a subcontractor to them. But we have responsibility for dive operations and for critical systems, especially for underwater operations. So the majority of the divers that work here, the safety divers, utility divers, the drivers of the little video rays under the water that help take pictures, they're oceaneering employees.
And how many oceaneering employees work here?
So we have about somewhere in the mid-20s number of oceaneering employees. And like Carl said, a lot of divers, but we also have the engineers that do the critical systems. So the breathing system, the upkeep of the mock-ups that you see underneath here. There's a mock robotic arm that's in the NBL that we also provide the engineering support for as well.
So this is a full mock-up of the majority or all of the space station?
So this facility has a mock-up of the outside of the International Space Station, and it's full size. Now they've broken it into components so that you can fit it.
Yeah, I thought I'd stop that there. This is a photo of the space station, International Space Station, and there's a life-size model of that structure in the pool. So it shows you how big the pool actually is. The only bits that aren't in the pool are the large wings on either side. These are called solar panels. So the sun's rays is converted into electrical power with these solar panels. But essentially, that whole silver bit in the middle there, that's in the pool. And so what the astronauts do out in space whenever they've got a task, and it could be just to bolt a bracket on somewhere, then they bolt the bracket on and practice bolting the bracket on inside the NBL, so they're really, really good at it whenever they get back, whenever they get up into outer space.
Yes, because the International Space Station is like a giant building project. So bits of the International Space Station, as you said, Jim, they get in the space shuttle taxi and they get sent out into space. And then it's the astronauts who are they're like space builders, building this International Space Station and making sure it's big enough for all the astronauts and all the research to go inside. And even these huge solar panels are brilliant, because it's not like they can run a giant electrical cable from space to Earth for them to be able to do things in space. So having these solar panels, just like we've got here on Earth, we're harnessing the energy from the sun and converting it into the kind of energy that we can use. Here on Earth, we're using it for everyday tasks already. But in the International Space Station, those solar panels look pretty big. They look like bigger than we would maybe have on our houses. But it's nice as well, because they're getting energy from the sun, and the International Space Station can keep tracking the sun out in space to keep that energy supply. So, but imagine that International Space Station has been put together like a giant Lego set in space using the astronauts. So they've got to be pretty good at following all the instructions, I guess, when they get into space and the different bits and how it all works. So it's
I've thought of another question there off the cuff, Sarah, that everybody could maybe go back and have a look at later, or even ask Carl on Friday. But if you're looking at that photograph, do you know where the space shuttle would go? If the space shuttle was going up to the space station, where would it dock? On the left or on the right or at the top? So maybe have a little think about that, where the space shuttle would dock,
where the garage is,
where the garage is, where they would move from the space shuttle into the space station. So where would that be?
We've had some guesses. The middle at the top.
Already?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Jim. These guys are on
Already?
fire today. Someone's also guessed the bottom, and someone's guessed the circular part at the front. We think it's the bottom left silver bit, and someone else has said the left. So there's lots of guesses as to where the space shuttle, where the garage is for the space shuttle.
Right, well, I'm not telling you just now. What we need to do is ask. I think we should, one of the questions to ask Carol, or you could send something in. Just do a screen grab and draw it in and send it in.
We'll mark on here for you guys where it, and we'll see if we can find a picture of the space shuttle docked.
Does anybody know why it's silver? Why is everything silver?
I was going to say because it's a cool color, but I guess that's.
I'll let you think about that one as well. Right, I'll
fit it in the bottom.
We'll never get this done.
But the idea is to give you a full-size mock-up of the International Space Station, so that people like Carl who do spacewalks can actually go practice what they're going to do in space here on ground to make sure that they don't make mistakes when they get up there.
And you say pool, you know, I'm struggling to, you know, this is basically 20,000 square feet of surface. Tell me about this, quote, pool.
So it's about 200 feet long, 100 feet wide, 40 feet deep. So 20 feet up, 20 feet down to give us the 40 feet. And
underground 20
underground
feet.
20 feet.
I mean, that's a 4-story building.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's huge. And of course, we're in this cavernous, 8-story building here. So, right. I mean, it's a big place.
And 6.4 million gallons, is that right?
Something
water?
like that.
Yeah.
6.2, and a normal Olympic-sized swimming pool has about 600,000 gallons of water. Is that right? Or is it 60,000?
No, it's 600.
600,000, so 10 times larger.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
roughly.
Chlorine. It's just like a home swimming pool. How do you keep the water clean?
Right. So it has chlorine, and it's also kept at a warmer temperature than you would find in your home pool. It's kept up, I think, in the 80s, mainly because we got divers that are down there sometimes for 6 or 7 hours at a time, and so we keep the temperature a little bit warmer in the pool for their comfort.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's quite a warm pool. I said before it was 40 feet deep, but when I was there, the lifts weren't working. So I had to walk up 4 flights of stairs to get to where these guys are sitting just now. So I was a bit tired when I got there. So yeah, that's the size of the pool. So it's a very big pool. Did you have any other questions, Sarah?
We've had some guesses as to why the International Space Station why they chose silver. We've had a guess from Mowat to reflect the sun. Another, Mary McLaughlin's asked, is it because it's made of metal? Tanya Villians asked to reflect the light. That's what Lynn Masson's also guessed, and as well as E. Easton, who's to reflect the sun's rays away. And Abigail Kinghorn's also said the same thing, but also so that it doesn't overheat and to protect from the heat. But also someone said just so that you can see it in the sun.
Yeah, no, they're all correct. It's all about temperature control, and it's all about making sure they don't boil inside the space station. Remember, it gets very cold. It's reflecting the sun. It's reflecting the sun half of the day. Remember, at the other half of the day, when it's around the other side of the Earth, it's freezing because it's not in the line of the sun then, so it only comes around. I can't remember how many minutes it takes. Maybe you could get that out as a question as well. How many minutes it takes to do one complete revolution of the Earth? But half the time it's in the sun, half the time it's not. So the suits in the space station have to be able to protect the astronauts from extreme cold and extreme high temperatures as well. So yeah, no, all those guesses were correct.
Well done. This is what I'm saying, Jim. Dream team today. Everyone's doing really well there. So, and I'm really loving the idea that they don't have to sit in a cold bath when they're spending so much time, because the divers, that 6-7 hours, that's basically a full day's work spent underwater. and supporting the astronauts inside the suit. So sounds like a real team effort there. And all these different jobs, although we talk about the astronaut, there's so many different jobs that could be done to support the stuff that's going on in space. So research scientists and the engineers, the people to maintain the building and all of the equipment. You've got the divers who are helping to support what's going on. And you've got all the ground crew to help them stay safe in space and not come home as healthy on the way up and on the way down as they did on the way up. So many different, if you guys love space, there's so many different ways that you get to pick a job that's linked to working in space. And you could be somebody like Jim, who just loves loads of different things here on Earth and space related. So within his job, he gets to do lots and lots of different things. But this is really good. And all of your answers are doing really well today. And as I said, we're still collecting your questions.
Right. No bother, Sarah. I'll just hit the button.
Okay, so I'm going to go back because the people who work for me gave me questions to ask you guys, and they wanted me to talk to you about food. Okay, food. I mean, you can't just eat a hamburger up there. How does that work?
So my favorite story to tell about food has to do on my last shuttle flight. So I was the commander of STS-110, and we launched on April 8th of 2002. And Carl was actually living on the International Space Station at the time. And he had left in November to December and wasn't going to come back until May or June. And so Carl was a big rodeo fan. He really liked to go to the Houston Livestock Show and rodeo, and we knew that. And so what we did is we knew Carl would miss the rodeo in March, so we decided that we would have a barbecue dinner for Carl when he was up on station. So we took some barbecue with us, we took some lemonade with us, we took some country western music with us, we brought some blue denim shirts, we brought the red bandanas, and then we invited Carl and his crew over for dinner one night in the International Space Station. On the shuttle side. They were on the station side. And so we were having normal food, if you will. I mean, the barbecue beef and all that kind of stuff. And it was really kind of fun because the thing I remember most is when they're on the station, they don't have any cold water. All the water is lukewarm. They don't have a way of making the water cold. And the water that we had on the shuttle was cold because it was used to produce electricity, and it came out nice and cold. So I remember making the lemonade drinks we were sharing with our friends up there, and they would come out cold of the shuttle gallery. And I remember floating it across to the Russian that was there, Yuri at the time. And I remember when he caught that lemonade drink in his hand, and the first thing you could see was his eyes just light up because it was cold. And rather than drinking the lemonade, he just started putting it all over his neck and over his body because he hadn't felt something cold in 6 months.
Oh, wow.
So that's what I remember about the food.
Wow.
That was a big treat. We went over to the shuttle a lot to get those cold drinks.
So
yeah, it sounds like they had a wee party for Carol up there whenever Mike took the shuttle up. One of the questions, is there any other questions you would think about astronauts eating in the space station? Maybe you can prepare some of them for Carol or one or two of them for Carol on Friday. And maybe something like, can you get ice cream in the space station? Or here's a better question: would you be more likely to get ice cream in the shuttle when it's docked, or would you be more likely to get ice cream in the space station? Have a little think about that one.
We've had some questions about how large the International Space Station is compared to something that we would be familiar with. So I'm just. Is there something that you can think of an iconic building in Aberdeen that the International Space Station roughly might be the same size?
Well, maybe you'd maybe say it's probably as long as maybe 6 double-decker buses, kind of all end to end. 6 or 7 double-decker buses, something like that. And it's obviously it's a bit sprawly as well. There's bits of it all over the place sticking out all over the place, so it's not as if it's just one big massive aircraft or anything like that. It's like got bits, appendages coming off it all over the place. But the length of the pool must be about 7 double-decker buses long, I would think, something like that. But again, with the solar panels, then it's much bigger. It'd be really difficult to think of something that looks the same shape. Sarah, I don't think there's anything I can think of that's the same shape. So it would be difficult to compare with anything.
But 7 double-decker buses gives us an idea of the scale of it, and those solar panels we saw in the picture there, just how long they were in comparison. The International Space Station hub in the middle looks quite little compared to those giant solar panels, but I guess the amount of energy that they require in space is to be able to live and work is quite large. So they obviously need a lot of energy. And we've had a guess for, is it easiest to make ice cream in the shuttle? As one of our guesses from somebody regarding, I don't know if I could. Carl said he was in space for 6.5 months. I think that's a long time to go without ice cream, and definitely a long time to go without a cold drink. So it was good that they were able to pop over to the shuttle and borrow their cold drink.
Cold stuff. Yeah. No,
but also, they mentioned
absolutely
about the Russian, so the International Space Station, it won't just be, they have to learn lots of different languages as well, don't they, to be able to converse and live in space together.
Yuri. Yeah. A guy called Yuri, and that is, when Carol said they had to go over to the Russian equivalent of the Neutral Buoyancy Lab, I can't remember what he called it, but it's the Russian equivalent, and that's where he met Yuri, because he and
hydropool.
Sorry.
Was it called the hydro pool or the?
That was something. Yeah, it was something like that, and that was where he met Yuri. So that's how he and him were both mates on the space station, because that's where they met, and they had to work together up there. Yeah, but most of the time the Russians. I mean, he had to learn a bit of Russian when he was over there, but most of the time I think they speak English. But yeah, there's Japanese and Chinese and Russians all have to get on with each other. Imagine falling out with somebody up there or not liking somebody up there. There's not a lot of places you can go to get away from them. So you really do have to, you have to be a certain temperament. And it's probably one of the biggest tests that you go through before you get to be an astronaut is, are you of a specific temperament, rather than being somebody that gets angry very easily.
It's also something to learning how we get on with other people and being able to embrace everybody's differences and find that's part of what, if we were all the same, it'd be a little bit boring for Carl and Yuri in space. I like the idea of them being able to teach each other different things or share each other's experiences because they're differences. But yeah, definitely everybody has to, it's like the school playground, everyone's got to get along well in space. And we've got a question about how you can cook or heat the food in space.
No, well, I wouldn't know the answer to that, but I would imagine it would be the same kind of thing as a microwave. It would just be something that certainly all the food is pre-packed. So all they do is they put it into a little microwave looking machine, and they'll heat it up like that. So it'll all be pre-packed and it'll all be sealed. And remember as well, whenever they're drinking stuff, it's all weightless, so you're not really. What you do is you would squeeze a little bag, and a globule of juice would come out, and you would have to go about trying to catch that globule of juice before you could drink it. And it's the same with the food. They've got to squeeze it out of the packet, and if they miss it with their mouth the first time, it floats around, and they got to go try and catch it with their mouth.
They've got to work hard for their lunch in space, don't they?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, thank you for that.
So let's go to the space station then. You were in the space station for 6.5 months, is that right?
That's correct. What's
it like living zero gravity, 6.5 months? What's it like?
So you float everywhere. So for 6.5 months, if I wanted to move from one side of the station to the other, I would just push off and float. And normally you start out floating like Superman, kind of, laid out horizontal. Pretty soon you get control of your center of gravity, and you can just kind of float vertically. It's kind of a weird looking thing, where you've transitioned to you just, move around your center of gravity when you're floating. And the view is just fabulous. So, we launched in the winter time, and so we could see winter in the northern hemisphere. And then you could see when snowstorms happened. With some of the cameras that we had, we could take really detailed pictures of places when it was snowing, and then we went into spring, and you could see the spring floods, and yeah, you could just see the seasons changing while you were up there. It was really cool.
And your shuttle missions, how long were you up at a time?
So our shuttle flights were typically 12 days. We would launch from the Earth, and then 3 days later was when you would dock with the International Space Station. You would typically stay docked for about a week, maybe 10 days, and then you would undock, and it would take about a couple days to get back home. So the total mission, like I say, was somewhere around 12, 13 days, and probably 10 days of that or so was actually getting work done, constructing the International Space Station, adding components to it so that it's in its final configuration now where people are living and working in space.
Just, I mean, amazing. So back to you then. You get home and you get up in the middle of the night to go get a sandwich or something. Do you find yourself, I mean, how do you get reacclimated to that? Like, you actually have to stand up. You just can't push off and to go to the refrigerator again.
So when you get back down, your body is deconditioned and your mind is deconditioned, and so the organ, the otolith that helps you stay, upright, hasn't had to work or send commands to your body for 6.5 months, and so it takes a while for that to catch up. And so as you're walking initially, you have to be very, very careful. I actually fell the first day because I, started pushing off there, and boom, over I went. I just kind of laughed. I didn't hurt myself, but you have to be careful. So, and just as time goes on, you readapt. About a couple of days later, I really didn't have any problems walking, but I did lose 20 pounds and
Wow.
Muscle and bone mass, and muscle mass came back in about 3 months. Bone mass about 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, sounds like Carol got a great, a couple of things. Sounds like Carol got a great view of planet Earth when he was up there for 6.5 months. I wonder if he saw Scotland whenever he passed over. He obviously lost a lot of weight, and he got a lot weaker when he was up there for 6.5 months because he lost his muscle mass and his bone mass. But I wonder what would happen if he was required to stay up longer. I wonder how he would last that long. I wonder how long you could stay in space before you had to come back down again. These might be things you maybe want to ask Carol.
Yes, it's a big area of concern, isn't it? Because it's so expensive to get them up there. Mike was just saying it took him a couple of days to fly out there, and then he was there for a week, and then a couple of days to fly back. So if you want to get anything done up in space, you're going to be there for a wee while. And some of the exercise machines that they have, we've seen pictures of how they can stay fit in space. And Heather, when she came over to Aberdeen, that was she works at NASA, and she was able to chat to us. That's her job, is to keep them healthy in space and keep that their muscles working. So they have very small gym equipment up there, don't they? I remember her telling us they can't take big, huge weight machines or big, huge pieces of equipment to help them. So they're everything's a small miniature gym up there just to keep them healthy. But what can you imagine 6.5 months being able to watch the amazing television programs of the Earth flying past your window all the time? It must have very, very amazing for us, and we'll be able to ask him.
I was even thinking about sleeping. One could be one of the questions you need to ask him as well. How do you go to sleep? Do you just stand up and shut your eyes and Velcro yourself to the side of the space station? I mean, what happens? So I don't know. I think you should maybe ask Mike that as well. But it looks like I would ask Carol probably more. But Mike, he was like the taxi driver. He went up and back to the space station till it was finished. And I was wondering as well, I wonder how many shuttle missions it took to actually build the space station before the shuttles were retired. That's maybe another question you need to ask.
We've had a question about what happens if you cry in space. So we'll be able to ask Carl about that on Friday, if there was ever a moment when he cried in space. And Lynn Masson's asked how long it took to recover from being in space based on bone density. Carl said it took him 3+ years of bone density to come back. And favorite space food, we can totally ask Carl that on Friday. Jim, have you tasted any of the food that they use? No, nothing.
No, nothing. I have heard it's baby food.
No, that would be terrible.
Yeah.
I'm excited to ask him about his ribs and his barbecue meal. But there's a question about how the astronauts get in and out of the Neutral Buoyancy Lab from Eve Swanson.
Oh, that's a great question. Can you wait until I show you a photograph? And
I think Eve's, unfortunately, I think Eve's just jumped, had to come off the call. But if you send me that photograph, we'll make sure we send it to Eve.
Yeah, well, I'll stop it at the photograph. I've got it there, and it shows you exactly. I'll put the question, where do you think the astronauts get in and out, and I can show you it there. So we'll just start this now.
Yep.
All right, so I'm being selfish. I'm kind of asking all the questions I want to ask. So I'm going to ask the MBL. We've got something going on over here. Now, this facility is used by whom? Who? How do I get time in the pool? How does this work?
So the facility is owned by NASA, and they've given a contract to Raytheon, if you will, to run the operations out here, and we're part of that team. When NASA was building the International Space Station, they needed this big pool, and they would do these crew runs, 10 runs a week. They would have it on both sides of the pool, separate runs, 5 days a week, and they were using the entire pool. But once the International Space Station was completed, they didn't need to use the pool that much. So to try and defray costs, what they would do is they said, we want to rent this out to commercial companies to come in and use this facility. So we do training. What you see over there is some of the Hewitt training, the helicopter underwater.
So what are they doing over there?
So they actually have people in a mock-up of a helicopter, and they're taking them underwater, and then the people have to escape from the helicopter to show that they can do that if they were ever to go out on an oil rig and the helicopter went down, as part of the required training, if you will, if you go to an oil rig. So we do that kind of training. We also have an ROV that we added here from Oceaneering that we added in 2013. Mm-hmm. So it's been here now for 4 years. And if customers want to come in and test out something here in the calm, in the nice environment of a pool, they can do that rather than trying to go out into the ocean and find out that it doesn't work out there.
So would someone like a BP or a Shell rent time in the pool and use the ROV? Carl, what would they use it for?
So they'll basically have an operation that they want to try.
Yeah, this is the picture I was wanting to stop at. So the NBL, the pool is used for helicopter underwater escape training. That's Hewitt for short. We do that as well for all the offshore workers in Aberdeen. So if some of you guys have you got any family that work offshore, and they will probably have done this type of training as well. So I was wondering if you knew about that type of training, and do you think an astronaut needs to do that type of training?
Well, if they've got to fly out there, so I'm going to guess that they would have to practice the same sort of flight emergency training that you would on a helicopter, but their suits probably are a little bit different to some of the suits that perhaps folks at home wear offshore.
Yeah, this part of the pool I was going to say, Sarah, because it's to that question the lassie said earlier on there. This part of the pool is at one end from the space station. So the ROV is that yellow thing hanging from the crane. So it's kept separate from the International Space Station mock-up. You can see part of the space station on the left-hand side there, and there's a great big curtain that goes across the top of the water, and if you look underwater, you'll see the curtain goes all the way down to the bottom of the pool. So they're dropping the ROV into the water in this pool just to do some testing. But I don't know if you can see the yellow. There's a yellow stand on the far side of the pool. There's actually two of them towards the top left of the corner. Can you see those stands?
Yes, they look like giant yellow sticks.
Giant yellow sticks. If the photograph was a little bit higher up, you'd see they're kind of cantilevers. But these stands and cantilevers, they're mini little cranes, and they've got platforms on the top of them, and they swing round and they drop into the water. And the astronaut, like the robotic arm we talked about earlier on, they stand on a little platform, and these cranes lift the astronauts vertically out of the water, then swing around and put them down on the side of the pool. And that's how they get in and out of the water.
I think that's a perfect, think about getting out of the water. That's a perfect place to pause part one of our introduction to getting ready to meet Carl on Friday. And thank you so much, Jim. You've been absolutely brilliant. You're sharing your knowledge with us and giving up your time has been lovely. And to everyone who's joined us today, don't forget, we'll be keeping this recording and we'll send you the link so that you can watch it again and look in slow motion and maybe even test yourself to see what you can remember about what Jim has been telling us about today. Oh, thank you very much for some thank yous in already. As you can see, we love this, and that's why we've run on a little bit longer than we'd hoped to do. So apologies for keeping you guys a little bit longer. Hopefully your tummies aren't rumbling too much today for lunch. Thank you very much. But we will be back again tomorrow. If you haven't signed up for tomorrow's talk, then don't forget, if it's not too late if you want to, but equally that will also be recorded and that will be shared as well. So these two pieces together, because there was so much that we wanted to cover. We've got these two parts and then ready for Friday when we'll be able to ask Carl all about his trip into space, the kind of work that he did, right down to his dinner and what he enjoyed. So thank you ever so much, Jim. And we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. And a lovely thank you to everyone who's joined us today. You've been absolutely brilliant. I think, thank you very much, P6M as well. Thank you. It's been lovely. And this is the best thing we can do to be able to keep in touch with all of you guys at this time. Thank you so much for joining us and making it so special. So a massive thank you from me and the team at TechFest. A huge thank you to Jim. And we'll be seeing you at our next talk. And don't forget, there's a whole jam-packed program this week. So not just space, but we've got absolutely loads and loads of things going on. So please do check out the program. And someone's put up their hand. If you wanted to stay on the call, if you've got a question that you want to ask us with your hand up, we'll stop the recording and we'll answer any questions that you've got live. But thank you very much, Jim. And we'll see you again tomorrow.
Thank you. No problem, Sarah. Bye. See you later, everybody. Thank you.